taking elections down from the inside. As an elections clerk openly celebrates the chaos of a data breach, the state and county scramble to figure out how to ensure fair elections.
Mr. Fogel, I would like to introduce you to my friend and process server. His name is Jeremy. You're being served with a lawsuit, Mr. Fogel.
Another round of unhinged public meetings in Colorado. If civility isn't dead, it's clinging to life, as they say on the local TV news. Denver's drivers have their barriers removed. Watch out if you're on a bike or walking. And you've asked how to help Afghans resettled in Colorado and those who are coming soon. It's this week's Word of Thanks microgiving campaign on Next. The conspiracy theorists trying to overturn Colorado's elections are pretty clear about how they're going to do it. By convincing conservative election clerks on the inside to help them. Mesa County Clerk Tina Peters is removed from election duties under investigation for the breach of security in her voting systems that she openly celebrated. The state Republican Party won't answer questions about the clerk's future, but former Republican Secretary of State Wayne Williams told us today Clerk Peters needs to go. Politics guy Marshall Zellinger looks at what happens next in this case that could set the stage for how our elections could be undermined from within.
The clearest part of this story is that elected Republican Mesa County Clerk Tina Peters will not run the county's November election. What's less clear is who will.
I feel like the Mesa County voters can feel confident that they're going to get a resolution to this problem.
Current Republican Mesa County Treasurer Sheila Reiner was appointed to run Mesa County's November election by Democratic Secretary of State Jenna Griswold. The three Republican Mesa County commissioners did not like that.
There is an immediate need, in my opinion, an immediate need to counter what the Secretary of State is doing. Our position is she is out of her lane.
The commissioners believe they have the power to pick the replacement and chose former Secretary of State Wayne Williams.
I want to ensure that the people of Mesa County have an election that functions well and that they can have confidence in.
So who will run Mesa County's next election? Williams or Reiner? For now, both?
Wayne and I started talking last night, and we already have an agreement that we're working as a team.
We've sent correspondence out to staff. We've let them know that on major decisions we're going to be conferring.
Search warrants we obtained today reveal some of the investigation into Peters' office, looking into how passwords and images from voting computers were leaked from secure equipment. Investigators are looking for video surveillance of restricted access areas, logs, texts, voicemails, and emails by or with Peters and her staff. And they want access to her two cell phones to look at everything from notes and reminders to texts and GPS information.
Should Clerk Tina Peters resign?
Yes. Unless, right, everything I've read is wrong. But if you violate the public trust and you impact the integrity of the election systems, then that is a situation that makes it so you cannot effectively perform that job.
Reiner would not answer if she feels Peters should resign. She said that what you just heard from Williams right there is right. But Reiner was also supportive of a recall attempt of Peters that failed. And so now we've set the stage for, hey, we're going to try to clean up an election by having someone else do it, and now we don't know who's going to do it still.
Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, you have to think a certain portion of the population is not tuned in to the QAnon buffoonery, is not tuned into some of the hyper-partisanship, and just wants like a clean election, like win, lose, or draw, wants a clean election.
And both Williams and Reiner say, no matter who it is, and right now they say it's both of them, you're going to get that fair, transparent election.
All right. Thank you, Marshall. So recent meetings in Mesa County, not the only ones to go off the rails, even within that county. I mean, last night, the school board needed a police escort when an anti-masker crowd got out of hand. And we've seen public meetings on the Front Range devolve into arguing and stalemates and threats. Last night in Longmont, the mayor brought a lawyer and a process server to a meeting to sue people right there during public comment. Our collective inability to interact civilly is on full display at these meetings, leading our Steve Sager to explore whether it might be avoidable.
What you're about to witness may be one of the more entertaining things I've seen play out on public access TV. A man talking to a city councilman during public comment at Loveland City Council.
Mr. Fogel, I would like to introduce you to my friend and process server. His name is Jeremy. You're being served with a lawsuit, Mr. Fogel.
That's the mayor's lawyer, straight up serving a lawsuit during a city council meeting. She claims the councilman and a citizen are harassing her. Across the divide in Mesa County at a school board meeting, an unruly crowd, upset about a shortened public comment session, forced the District 51 school board to abruptly pause their meeting. They were escorted out by police and finished their meeting virtually.
The food fighting that we would kind of put onto Washington is now all of a sudden showing up quite a bit in state legislatures, but also in local politics.
But why? A common theme seems to be that we're losing local news.
People's news sources are increasingly just turning to national politics.
Seth Maskett is a political science professor at DU.
And so that sort of means that everyone is kind of reacting to the same thing all over the place rather than responding just to local stories.
When kind of the kind of measured voices that would influence how people thought about local issues, people turned to national politics.
Tim Schaefer runs a center focused on civil discourse at Kansas State University. Both agree city governments weren't built to handle the kind of divide they're seeing right now.
A lot of these city council rules and bylaws were written in an era when, a lot of these divides weren't so fiercely partisan and nationalized.
Explains why Aurora's city council can't seem to break a 5-5 tie and appoint someone to a vacant seat.
I mean, I'm getting emails going, y'all are being so childish.
As for the anger, Maskett says it could be anger at national politicians redirected.
But a city council member is simply there.
Schaefer says it could be we've all kind of lost touch with each other.
We need to get out and kind of live life with each other, right? We need to be in kind of recreational leagues. We need to be showing up, and hanging over the fence, talking about life with the neighbor.
So what are some solutions? More local news. Subscribe to your local newspaper who's sending a reporter to cover those important issues. And Maskett says maybe public financing of local campaigns could help too, instead of having candidates ask for cash, that they're just given a set amount at the beginning. But my big takeaway is that we just need to learn to talk to each other a little bit more, Kyle. It's a lot easier to understand where someone's coming from when you see them face to face.
I would love to think that that would work. But I've never seen at one of these public meetings when somebody is informed that they got some bad information that they say, oh, my bad, and sit down. I think about like those meetings where people came out and screamed up about critical race theory in schools, and the school board said, oh, we don't teach that here. And everybody was like, well, yeah, but we came to scream about it. So could we please get about screaming about it again? Like nobody ever goes, oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to go home and I'm going to play a board game with my family.
So yeah, it's like getting informed about the issues is the important part. But Maskett actually says there might be a blessing in all of this, because you think about it, like some of these local bodies for a long time have said like people just aren't engaged and we want people engaged in the process. Well, they're coming there. Now it's trying to get everybody to kind of just level and talk to each other and understand each other and know where things are coming from. Even if something happens that we don't agree with, we understand why it has to happen.
One version of reality. Everybody gets to talk about the one version of reality. All right, thank you, Steve. Hey, Americans are going to be doing shots again. Steve walked out of his shot before his shot was off the screen. Thank you. Americans will be doing shots again. CDC announced plans for COVID-19 booster shots for any American who wants them starting next month. They're suggesting that you get a booster shot 8 months after your second shot of Pfizer or Moderna. I heard from some of you out there today who like me, we got that J&J Great Value vaccine. Nobody ever talks about us in these announcements. At last check, J&J represented less than 10% of Colorado's vaccinations. You got to keep in mind when we think about these research timelines, the J&J shot was approved 3 months after the others, so its research is naturally going to lag behind. Along the way here, as we've talked about our decision making, I promise to be upfront with mine, so here's what I'm telling people. I'm not rushing out to get a booster shot before it's recommended to me by public health experts, but I'll take it when it's offered. If, though, you're immunocompromised and you got the J&J and you're wondering about a booster, I really would urge you to talk to your doctor about it, ask smart questions, and be persistent about your concerns. Colorado's corrections workers can get the vaccine or they can get a new job. They have until the end of September to get their first dose. That is the state's decision. DOC is doing this knowing that a good percentage of anti-vaxxers could just walk.
We know that that risk exists. Here's the deal for our department. The risk of not taking this step potentially exposes us to another onslaught of the variant in the fall and the winter. So this really is a case, as my dad used to say, kind of a damned if you do and damned if you don't. But this is the right thing to do, knowing that even those risks of staff not showing up or who may just decide this is not the department to work for.
Head of the DOC there, Dean Williams, says his staff knows that they may end up working overtime if coworkers quit or get fired. And the DOC's put out calls for temporary staff and retired employees to come back and work if that's what's needed. Afghans with special immigrant visas are coming to Colorado. We don't know how many, we don't know how soon, but we do know who is going to be here to welcome them and how we can help those Afghans who protected American lives overseas. Our Word of Thanks micro-giving campaign this week is supporting the refugee resettlement work of the African Community Center. That nonprofit's helped hundreds of Afghans get off to successful starts in Colorado in recent years. The African Community Center is there from the literal start. They meet families when they get off the plane in Denver. They help them find an apartment and get it furnished. And they walk side by side with these families to get them set up with work, with school, with community connections. The stuff that families will need to be self-sufficient in America. I don't need to tell you about the desperation of Afghan families that helped American troops and the scramble to get them out of Afghanistan right now. Denver is one of the top 4 cities where Afghan refugees have been resettled in recent years, and the African Community Center is already preparing to welcome a new wave of our neighbors. Colorado has a legacy of welcoming refugees that we all can be proud of. And tonight, we can also be part of that work. You text the word thanks to 303-871-1491, and I'll send you the link to donate. As always, I'll match the first 50 donations of $5 to get us rolling. There are newly arrived Afghan families that have come to Colorado in just the last few weeks, and the African Community Center staff, with our help, is going to be ready to serve even more families as they arrive soon.
We're not doing it to upset you. We're not doing it to delay you. We're doing it to stay alive and uninjured.
Denver's drivers had to learn how to slow down and share some streets during the pandemic. The speedways have been reopened. We ask why. And the only Coloradans more determined than the activists trying to help people overcome homelessness are the neighbors trying to stop them. If at first you don't sue and succeed, sue again. Next.
Hazy and hot today, but a trough of low pressure off to the west will offer some cooler weather, some snow way up high, and maybe some beneficial rain to lower elevations. 97 in Denver today, but that cool air already invading the northern and central mountains. Slow-moving storms bringing the threat of flooding and mudslides to the Glenwood Canyon and also areas in Larimer County. We're watching it closely tonight with a flash flood watch out for western Colorado. In Denver, as we move through the overnight time period, the moisture increases for the western slope. Only isolated showers here. Our best chance for rain comes in tomorrow afternoon. Tonight's low at 60 with partly cloudy skies. Tomorrow, our high temperature at 84. Good chance of showers and storms throughout the day. A cool high of only 80 on Friday, and then a beautiful weekend. Sunshine in 80s for Saturday and Sunday.
The neighbors who are trying to block the homeless camping site in Park Hill are racking up more losses than the Rockies on the road, but they keep trying. They're suing again, having lost in court and lost before the city and lost before the city again. So you had a handful of neighbors that originally sued to stop the city-sanctioned campsite for the homeless, which was welcomed in by the folks at the Park Hill United Methodist Church. They put it up in the parking lot off Mount View. A judge tossed out the original lawsuit, told the neighbors they had to appeal to the city, which they did and lost twice. Seems that some of the concerned neighbors decided it wasn't worth the fight and they walked away. But at least one of them is part of the new lawsuit against that campsite that's now been operating without any issues that we know about for several months now. Great news for Denver's drivers, those pesky pedestrians and cyclists trying to safely share the streets with you. They've been stripped of the extra protection barriers put in during the pandemic. But don't say that the city doesn't do anything nice for cyclists, because the burned out wreckage of a trailer was moved out of a bike lane after only 9 days. Next. Denver's pedestrians and cyclists who missed the feeling of dodging distracted and speeding drivers can once again experience that exciting peril as the city does away with shared street spaces created during the pandemic. Nicole McSpirit's a cyclist, member of the Denver Bicycle Lobby. She took videos recently of some near collisions she had on 11th Avenue through Capitol Hill. Included one driver going the wrong way through a roundabout. Nope, that's not how you do that. And a speeding driver coming dangerously close to a cyclist. Fair to ask why cyclists are not in the bike lane on 11th. We'll ask them. They'll tell you it's more dangerous.
Literally, that is the worst place to put a bike lane. You are in between cars pulling in and out of parking, opening doors, and speeding traffic. It is that one space that you should not be riding. The other alternative is to do away with parking on one side of the street and provide a protected lane for, wider protected lane, maybe two-way, and allow people to use it that way.
11th Avenue was one of Denver's shared streets during the pandemic. There were barriers up to limit car traffic, trying to make things safer for cyclists and pedestrians. We asked the city why they decided to phase all of these areas out at once rather than keep the ones that were working.
With those restrictions, those guidelines lifted, with kids going back to school, and we're going to see more commutes, we're going to see more travel by car, we anticipate, as people are dropping off and picking up the kids. We want everyone to be safe. We want people to not be walking in the street anymore.
The city plans to revisit the former shared street spaces over the winter with the idea of making some of them permanent. Here's the deal. If cyclists wanted to be able to use bike lanes for as long as they wanted, they should have posed as a burned out hulk of a trailer, because that was allowed to sit in the bike lane near the 16th Street Mall downtown for 9 days after it caught on fire. Steve Steger lit a fire under the city on Next last night about it, and lo and behold, it was removed today. Afghan families will be coming to Colorado, and the nonprofit that's literally at the airport to greet them could really use our help. They're with these families every step of the way, helping them succeed in Colorado. So let's give them a hand next. Refugees tend to be resettled near others from their home country, and that's why Denver's likely to be high on the list for people currently fleeing Afghanistan. Families in danger there because of the years that they helped American troops. Hundreds of Afghan families have already come to Colorado in recent years, and we know that a new wave is coming. The African Community Center is a nonprofit that helps them find housing and then navigate getting IDs and jobs, get set up in schools, just on the path for a successful life here in the States. If you text thanks to 303-871-1491, I'll send you that link to join me and a bunch of others in donating to support their work before those families arrive. The images of desperate families fleeing Afghanistan right now are heartbreaking, but we know that there is something that we can do together to help all those families that end up here, our future neighbors in Colorado. Well, we knew somebody would play the whataboutism game, and it was Susan who writes in tonight, upset that we're supporting Afghan refugees coming to Colorado, saying, why not support an agency that helps Colorado's homeless? We certainly have, Susan, and we will again, and we won't allow that to be a distraction to keep us from helping refugees who are seeking a better life in Colorado. Dave writes about the unruly crowds at public meetings. Civilized discourse is being overwhelmed. This is not by accident. Does sometimes seem like a strategy, does it not? See you next time.